was first just a dream has become a frightening reality for those who may oppose us. Great mothers, I salute you. Soon we shall all escape this exile thanks to the efforts of Morgan and Elspeth.
I am ever your servant, Grand Admiral.
This is Enoch, captain of my guard. He shall begin the cargo transfer as per my agreement with the Great Mothers.
I have seen the catacombs. It will take some time. At least 3 rotations.
An acceptable time frame.
They have brought a prisoner.
You never spoke of this.
We did not see it. It is a loose thread.
Well, speak to me of this loose thread.
I brought the prisoner. I felt she could be of some use to us.
And you are?
Mercenaries. Balin Skull, and his apprentice, Shin Hati.
Then you must be General Balin Skull. Of the Jedi Order.
I parted ways with the Jedi long ago.
You would not be the first.
The prisoner is Sabine Wren.
Now there's a familiar name. You're quite right. She'd be of great use to us.
Welcome, Masters and Padawans, to episode 602 of Full of Sith. It's me, Bryan Young, and I am here with a special recording from DragonCon. It is the Star Wars Authors panel from the show, and joining me on this panel was Delilah Dawson, Timothy Zahn, and John Jackson Miller. We had a great time, as we always do, and it went to some very fascinating places, and definitely some ridiculous places, as any panel with Delilah might do. But I hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, here it is. Welcome, Masters and Padawans, Sith and Acolytes, also the Darth Jar Jar guy. This is the Authors of Star Wars. I'll be your moderator today. Hopefully I can keep things under control. My name's Bryan Young. I write about Star Wars at a variety of places and have included StarWars.com and Star Wars Insider, and I host a podcast called Full of Sith. And I write Star Wars stuff, including if you've recently, I don't know, in the last few years, bought any Star Wars trading cards, I write most of those too, which are fun and interesting. Having to write a bio of a character in 200 characters is the most fascinating exercise. Anyway, but we are going to talk to 3 illustrious Star Wars authors. To my left is Delilah S. Dawson. She's the creator of Vi Marathi from the Disney Star Wars parks, who I got to meet and interact with, and it was very awesome.
You met my imaginary friend.
Yeah, which is not something I can say of everyone. Yeah. Actually, of the 3 of you, I probably can say I've met all of your imaginary friends. I can't count how many Thrawns I've met. Oh, yeah. So, which brings us to Timothy Zahn, the creator of Grand Admiral Thrawn, among many, many other characters, and the writer of the Thrawn trilogy. Well, you've probably written how many Thrawn books now?
I've written 16 Star Wars books and I think 19 short stories. Most of those have Thrawn in them. There are a couple of them that don't.
Just a couple?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
You could also say he's written a throng of books.
You know,
walk into this.
The thing I love about having you here, Delilah, is that you've filled the void that Aaron Alston left, just in the pun department. Yeah. Aaron used to be a fixture on these, and he was the pun guy, and now you can be.
So I'm the fun girl.
Yeah, no, the pun girl. Yeah.
I changed it.
Okay, that's fair. And then finally, John Jackson Miller, the author of Kenobi and The Living Force, and a whole bunch of other stuff. You've written tons of other stuff. I'm actually.
I wrote an in-universe, in-continuity graphic novel for the Dumbo live-action movie, and I took that gig because it was directed by Timothy Burton, and it starred Michael Keaton and Danny DeVito, and I thought this is as close to Batman Returns as I was ever going to get. And now I'm writing the Batman Tim Burton novels, so that's the.
I meant other Star Wars stuff, but that Dumbo thing's pretty cool too.
Well, no, literally we actually had to figure out where in the actual script the comic book stories had to go, and did the same thing for the Lion King live action graphic novel. Lion King live action, what is that?
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you can't have Timon and Pumbaa meet the young lion yet because they haven't met. It's like, who cares? But apparently there are people who care. So
I care. Well, I don't actually, but
No,
it seemed like the right thing to say in the moment on a Star Wars panel.
Yeah.
It's canon gone wild.
Oh man, okay. It's going to be like that today.
It's yeah.
Well, yesterday was the serious panel.
Was it?
Yeah. So with Lion King, it's the pride comes before a fall. Got it.
Anyway, see, this is where he's here.
I don't know how to follow that. I don't know. This has gone off the rails already.
You
okay.
asked.
Did I? Yeah, no, 4 minutes in. Okay. They're never going to ask me to do one of these again. Maybe that was the plan. I don't know. Okay, so usually what we start with these for folks who haven't been to... How many of you have not been to an Authors of Star Wars panel before here at DragonCon? Wow, that's a lot of you.
wow.
Hopefully we don't
You all
scare
said you were
you
here
away.
yesterday.
No, there was a different group that was here yesterday.
Okay.
They're not usually this wacky. I promise we'll get into actual questions. Let's start, for the three of you, where we usually do for these panels for folks who haven't been here yet. What was your first introduction into writing Star Wars stories?
Yeah.
You have to tell us who to go first.
Okay, Delilah, start. I was looking at you, so I figured you'd start.
Okay, well, when I was a young warthog.
You've got to sing it now.
When I was a young warthog! All right. Disney, you know my number. Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was born in 77, so basically I was like sleeping on my Star Wars sheets before I'd ever seen the movie because you couldn't watch movies on demand back then. So the first one I actually saw in the theater was Return of the Jedi, and I was in love because murder bears. And, you know, I got to see the Battle for Endor, which was, you know, even further cemented that love because, like, oh, a little girl crash lands on a planet and befriends the murder bears. Like, this is my dream. So I've just been kind of all in since then. Like that Christmas, it was nothing but like Ewoks color forms and my stuffed Ewoks. I still have my Princess Nisa, and a very nice fan gave me her headdress because I'd lost it back in like the 80s. So now she has her headdress back. But I've just always been kind of immersed in the world. Like Star Wars to me is more real than actual history, and I'm much better at remembering it.
I was not a Star Wars fan when I was growing up, mainly because it hadn't happened yet. I was approached by Bantam Books to write the sequel to Return of the Jedi, the classic movies, that they had just worked out a deal with Lucasfilm for, and that was my first experience with Star Wars Expanded Universe of they want me to write some books. Cool.
I had written about Star Wars plenty for Comics Buyer's Guide and for the card game magazine we did, Scry, which was for games like Star Wars, the collectible card game, and Young Jedi and stuff like that. But it was not yet until I this is now the 20th anniversary of my first Star Wars anything for Lucasfilm because I had just finished writing Iron Man for a year. I was on a family reunion trip to Oregon, and we stopped in Milwaukee, and which is a suburb of Portland. Dropped in on the folks at Dark Horse who I knew through the business, and I'm like, oh, is that Randy Stradley, the editor for Star Wars over there? Let me go say hi. And by the way, I just happen to have my year on Iron Man over here, and he hired me to do a single issue, fill-in issue for Star Wars Empire in order to take some of the burden off of what I found out was himself, because he was ghostwriting the series at the time because he actually had to try to fill those issues. And he liked it enough that the issue came out 20 years ago this summer, and they, at that point, had already hired me to do Knights of the Old Republic, which was the comic series.
So, a question, when you're stepping into the world of Star Wars novels, there's this impression from some folks, and it's a question I get a lot, even though I haven't written a Star Wars novel, is folks come up to me and say, so I've written a Star Wars novel, and I'd like to figure out how to get them to publish it. I can already see face-palming. How does that process work when you're approached to write a Star Wars story like that? What does that process actually look like? Because you can't just write the story you want to write and then hand it to them. There's a different process there. What was the process like for your first Star Wars novel for each of you? And we can start with Delilah.
So I'm the most recent, and I had to kind of petition for mine. I really wanted to write Star Wars, and my friends were writing Star Wars, and so I had my agent, send things to the editors. I met the editors. I did some minor dark magic with a Star Wars cupcake that had a Darth Vader ring in it, where I was like, I bought it, and I was like, I'm gonna put it in the freezer, and when I get to write Star Wars, I'm gonna eat the cupcake. And then 2 weeks later, I was like, oh, I don't care, I'm gonna eat my feelings. And then the next day, I got the email. So I still have the Darth Vader ring too. But the way it works nowadays is the Star Wars editors work with the folks at Lucasfilm, talking about a project, and they have a list of writers that they think would be good for it, and they decide on who to approach first with some backups, and you get an email that makes your entire year. Inviting you to do that. And if you want to do it, you start usually by pitching them some ideas of what they want. But it's not like they come to me and say, what do you want to write? They say, we want a book about Phasma that tells her backstory, but not through her personal point of view. And then we come up with, what the backstory is. You have to come up with pitches. They choose a pitch. They refine it. You do an outline. They tell you extensively what's wrong with that outline and that you can't use that guy because he's over there right now, and that planet's over here, and Quat Drive Yards is not making that ship. They fix the outline, and then once it's correct, you have much less time than you are prepared for to write about a 100,000-page book. Once you've written that,
page or word?
100,000
Oh, God.
word.
Well, you have it easy.
It felt
I
like
guess.
100,000 pages when you were writing it.
Yeah.
100,000 words, which is still pretty long for a book. And then once you have your finished book, your editor reads it and edits it. You go back and forth. You're happy with it. They send it to Story Group. When Phasma came back, it had 17 people in the comments arguing, and it crashed Word, which I didn't know you could do. So you have to fix it to their specifications, and then there's more and more editing. Like it's such a back and forth process, and it's so collaborative. And it's almost like there's all these people whose job is to be the safety net under you while you're on the tightrope and make sure you don't do anything absolutely egregious.
How, if you would permit me a follow-up, how fast was that process for that first 100,000 words, not pages?
I write a book on my own in about a month and a half to 3 months, so it was pretty much my usual pace anyway. Mm-hmm. I've known writers who have had as few as 30 days and as many as 6 months, but they call it a crash schedule because it's usually where they're like, hey, we need this now. And there's times where they'll be like, we need this edit turned around in a week. And you'll be like, well, I'm on vacation. And they're like, cool, that'll give you plenty of time to turn around that edit in 1 week.
Tim, what about you?
Yeah, that's basically the way it was, except that I started out with snail mail and phone calls rather than email because that didn't exist yet. But yeah, it's they would usually come to me and say, we've got a slot open next year, something like that. Would you like, what book would you like to write in? What era would you like to write it in? And often I got to pick and choose. It was never we want this book about so, well, actually, the Ascendancy trilogy was we want Thrawn's backstory in the unknown regions. But normally it's been pitch us an idea and we will, again, they'll pick and choose which things I can or cannot do, and then we'll go on from there. I don't think I've ever had a crunch thing like you had time crunch wise. I've usually had enough time. This is the slot we want. Can you write a book in that era with your other commitments? Yeah, I can do that.
What with the Heir to the Empire trilogy, when they came to you for those first books, when they were just building the process, what was that like, building that story? Was that collaborative in that way, the way it is now, or was that something you put together? What was that initial process like? Because you were really building that bus for the first time.
It was a wide open canvas because nothing had been done past Return of the Jedi before. I got two instructions going into it. I could use start 3 to 5 years after Jedi, and I could use anybody who had not been killed in the movies. That leaves an awful lot of open ground. So I pitched them the idea. I think I did about 5 or 6 pages of outline for the first book and 1 for each of the other 2 because I knew things are going to change and there's no point spending too much time. Just show them where it's going and where it's going to end. There were some things in the outline they didn't like. We fixed those. The final manuscript it was probably 2, maybe 3 pages, single-spaced, of comments from my editor and the Lucasfilm editor. Tweaked all of those. Then it goes to the copy editing process. The copy editor on the first book did not necessarily know anything about Star Wars. She kept changing stormtrooper from 1 word into 2. For a while, I considered getting a rubber stamp that said STET, which means leave it the way it is, and just having to do that instead of writing it out each time and linking the 2 words. The best one was, I think it was for the 3rd book. The copy editor at that time would put little tabs in the pages with the questions and things like that. And a just wonderful little tab saying, why do the Noghri keep calling Leia Lady Vader? Is she Darth Vader's daughter? I think I've got that one still someplace. But generally it was, you do what you want to do, and they will tell you where you can't.
What about you, John?
So I mentioned that I did something which was probably not available to most people and probably should not try on your own, which was walk into the publishing company's headquarters and ask to do the work. The fact is, that was in 2004, but the pitch that I submitted that was accepted was part of a package of 4 pitches that I had written together in 1994. Basically, almost the second I was in the business as a small child, I had written Diana Schutt's, now that I'm in the business and I know somebody, here's some pitches for Star Wars back in the day when they still did what they call fill-in issues, when they had an ongoing series and they would have an issue where nothing could go in. And she responded at the time, I'm sorry, I can't look at anything because I didn't invite you to do this. I didn't say, send this to me. I didn't solicit it. We're not allowed to look at anything unsolicited. And I don't know your work. I don't know anything. You haven't hit 10 years of deadlines in the intervening time frame. And so it took me having that year of Iron Man comic books under my arm to be able to go in there and get one of those 4 stories sold, which was, and the one he chose was, I had a story where it was a murder mystery where Darth Vader was sort of more or less having to solve the mystery, and it fit for Star Wars Empire. But another one of those stories I ended up using in the Star Wars Adventures Annual by IDW in 2018. And again, it's more or less the same exact story that I wrote in 1994. And the thing is, I have a Macintosh. So I have had them for the last 30 years, going back to my Apple II days. I'm still able to open the files that I was writing in 1990. It's all the same version of my hard drive I've had for all these years. And so save everything. You'll find a place to use it.
And that's a key point. People want to write Star Wars, but you have to have a track record first. You have to have a track record of your own stuff, or somebody else's Iron Man will work. You have to prove to them you can put words together, and you can put them together on deadline, because they've got a very fixed schedule. If you are late with a book, everything gets thrown topsy-turvy. So yeah, you've got to have your own stuff done to prove you can do this.
And you also have to prove that you have a good attitude around when that edit letter shows up. You know, I still sometimes cry when I get an edit letter, but then nobody else knows that. That's between me and, you know, my gluten-free beignets. And, but you have to have a level of professionalism that no matter what they throw at you, you just go like, all right, I can do that. I had one time, I came home and there was a box of very expensive cookies on my front porch back when I could eat gluten. And I was like, okay, is someone trying to poison me? Because well done. But I didn't eat them until, because he was like, I don't eat stranger cookies. But then I got an email from my editor later that day. It was like, I can see that you have received the cookies, and so now I will give you the bad news. We have lost the 14-page outline that we have spent the last 3 months crafting, and you have to start all over again. And so you can't yell or get mad or get upset. You have to go, okay, well, I'll have 3 pitches in your mailbox tomorrow morning.
And then you turn into the Cookie Monster. With Kenobi, with Random House, how different was that for you, like with that or with A New Dawn?
Well, the actual novel, see, again, this talks about the gyrations of these things. Kenobi was originally going to be a graphic novel for the 30th anniversary for Star Wars in 2007 for Dark Horse. And as I literally pitched it with the email headline, the Ben Kenobi Western. And I have posted before the email, the 5 paragraphs of it are more or less exactly the novel as it came out, more or less. But as I continued to write the outline and resubmit it, it got longer and longer and longer. And it also became a thing where it looked like George Lucas might actually do a Dark Times TV series on ABC they were talking about at the time, which was, 2006 into 2007 at that point. And I just said, okay, let's just shelve this thing until I can write a novel. And of course, I had no novel experience at all at that point. And there was no prospect of it until, again, 2012, when I had already written one novel for Random House, and literally we're sitting on the floor outside the convention hall at Star Wars Celebration 2012 in Orlando, because there's no furniture anywhere, and we discuss. My editor said, "What do you have anything just involving a single character?" And I said, "Well, I've got Ben, and it's been sitting on my shelf for 6 years," and then that sailed through. Now I didn't. I still had the letter that came like you got, although it was actually a very easy thing to fix, because they said, yeah, it needs a prologue because Ben doesn't show up until page 60. And I'm like, well, okay, you can have the story I was going to write for Star Wars Insider. That's the prologue. But yeah, and so yeah, the process. What you're talking about, you mentioned New Dawn. The only difference is now we got the TV folks involved. Now we've got the story group involved. Now it's just more layers.
I want to ask each of you, and then we're going to have time for questions from the audience. We've got a microphone back here. If folks want to line up behind that, we'll take as many questions as we can. And it is just back here in this row. I want to ask you, of the characters you've worked on and the characters you've created, which have been the ones that you've really gelled to, the ones that have been the most fun to work with? Maybe not necessarily your favorites, because sometimes I know favorites can be difficult to work with, but what have the ones that have been your favorites, both that you've created and the ones that were there ready-made for you? And we can start over on this end.
So, in Star Wars, we're working with a lot of characters that someone else has come up with and that already exist. So it's very fun to say, give Phasma a backstory and explain why she's not dead, because she can't be dead because I made her unkillable. Show me the body. But part of the fun is when you create your own character and you try to do something really challenging as a writer, because as a writer, you don't want to rest on your laurels or do something you've done before. You want to try something really difficult. So I created a character called Cardinal for Phasma. He is a red stormtrooper with a red helmet. You can actually buy his helmet from Target, or you could at one point, and he has an action figure, which is super exciting. But I wanted to play with the idea of what would it look like if a good person was in the First Order? How would they get there? How would they live their daily life, believing that they were doing the right thing, and how could they be won over to the rebellion? And it was really hard, but really rewarding character to write. And then, I got to eventually kind of show what a stormtrooper has to come out of chemically and emotionally to be a functional person, because the Empire and the First Order doesn't treat them like you are a person with emotions. It's you are a soldier that will do what we say, and we have programmed you, and your food is full of drugs, and your hormones are regulated, and you will do what we say. Super fun. And the same thing for Iskat in Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade, my latest one. We wanted to show what would take a Jedi who is a good person who wants to do good in the world, what would make them, without any artificial coercion or chemical coercion or force coercion, to become an Inquisitor and become a person who hunts down and kills their fellow Jedi. And that was really an exciting journey to go on, because we haven't seen that firsthand outside of Anakin, and of course we all think that probably Palpatine was doing some stuff to him, and there were other things in that mix. But I was getting my neurodivergency diagnoses at the time, so it was also kind of the journey of a person who doesn't fit in and feels like an alien and strange and doesn't know why they can't relate to other people, and they live under a religious cult that tells them that they're wrong, and what would make them feel empowered as themselves. So it's like all of our books, we're writing a story, but there's a story under the story.
Obviously, I had a lot of fun doing Thrawn, Mara Jade, Talon Card. Probably the most challenging was the aspect of outbound flight. I wanted to answer the question, why aren't the Jedi in charge of everything? They've got the Force, they should be the wise ones, they should be the whatever. Why not? And I wanted to show that not only, okay, Spidey fans, with great power comes great responsibility, but with great power also can come great arrogance. I know what I'm doing. I have the Force. I'm a Jedi. I can go ahead on this voyage to another galaxy. I can take kids away from their parents because they're Force sensitive and start teaching them. And to watch the original Joruus C'baoth just being so arrogant without any concept that what he's doing is wrong on any level. Building that character and watching from the outside as he does, this is why we don't put them in charge of everything. So that was probably the most challenging character development I've gotten to do.
And of the legacy characters, which was the one you sort of had the most fun with?
Well, after I turned in Heir to the Empire, my editor asked me if Han was my favorite legacy character. I said, I don't know, why do you ask? And she said, well, you gave him all the best lines. In my defense, George did that first.
Fair enough.
He kind of writes himself, because he lives in your head. And then...
Yeah. I mean, I get frustrated when I hear some Harrison Ford say things like, Han Solo is boring. Not if you don't write him that way. He's very interesting if you know how to write him properly.
Living Force, which came out last year, is a book I could not have written 10 years before, in part because it's got 16 main characters. The entire Jedi Council, all 12 of them, every member is part of it, plus villains and also Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. And as I started writing, because I was going to put them in no matter what, I enjoyed writing the two of them and their repartee. It just flowed so easily. And I realized I was getting in the challenge of writing all the other Jedi Masters who had had nothing written about them in many cases before and figuring out their voices. And what I realized I wanted to do is show that just like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, who have been working together for many years, some of these people have known each other for centuries. Some of them like each other. Some of them are done. And we were picking up. I wanted to write the book, so we would pick up in the middle of these relationships. So you do get characters like Uriel Poof, who is so old, he's just decided, all right, yeah, I'm just going to have fun now. I don't care. And you've got other characters like Apo Rensisis, who are like, you have changed, and I don't like it. And this is just another phase in this. So yeah, I mean, you know, certainly Obi-Wan in any form is fun to write, but with somebody with them is great. And then these other characters, having them have somebody to bounce off of, is wonderful. Going back to, as you mentioned, characters I created, Legends. You know, my original, you know, buddy cop thing was Zane and Griff from Knights of the Old Republic. And I remember the thing that my editor said about 3 years in with the series. He says, you know, Griff, who is the con artist character, he never changes. He never learns anything. I said, no, he learns just everything that happens in his life just proves to him that he's right. And so he becomes more and more like himself. And that is the message of the character.
Were you the first person that got to write Yaddle?
No, because they had already written Yaddle in the cartoon, the Tales of the first person to write Yaddle.
Yeah.
There's some High Republic stuff.
I think she had appeared in some other stuff. There were some characters that had not been written at all. And yeah, I had to go look it up. Some characters had only been written in the Legends comics, but you know, some of that George had gotten rid of even, you know, in the Legends era, because much of what we knew about those characters came from the Phantom Menace Encyclopedia, where just in the liner notes, it's like, you know, Ki-Adi-Mundi has 5 wives and all of this stuff, and all of that was gone by
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
So you're saying Ki-Adi-Mundi dropped all 5 of his wives?
I think George dropped all 5 of Ki-Adi-Mundi's wives.
So.
George was a divorce attorney.
Among other things. I think he could have used one for himself in the 80s, though. What?
A Syrian?
Yeah.
He's got a big brain.
A Syrian divorce attorney. He's got 2 brains, not just one big one.
I thought a Syrian wife.
Oh, yeah. Well, that too. Who knows? George needs lots of things. Why don't we go to our first question on that note? Please bring us back on track.
Question for Timothy Zahn. You spent a lot of time creating the character Thrawn on the page, and I was curious, is when you imagined that character brought to life, what actor did you see portraying that character before they actually put him on the screen?
I almost never see a character in terms of face or voice. I see them in terms of attitude and personality. So if he's brought into animation or live action, if the writer understands his global awareness, his calm, his sense of being 5 moves ahead of everybody else, any competent actor can play that. So I was happy with what they did with Rebels. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in Ahsoka. I think Lars Mikkelsen has a great voice, and his presence is good as well in the live action. But yeah, I never saw any particular person in my mind.
Thank you.
I really liked how they brought someone in with a different flavor of accent for that, too.
Yeah, I think that was, Filoni has said that was one of the hardest casting decisions. And I think it was brilliant because Lars Mikkelsen is Danish, which means English is not his first language, just like it's not Thrawn's first language, basic. And I don't really hear an accent with Lars, but there's just a bit of cadence that's a little bit different, just enough to make him feel like this is an alien speaking a language that's not his first. I think that just brilliantly done.
Thank you for your question. Excellent.
When you're like referencing other Star Wars novels in your novels, like all the High Republic references in The Living Force, are you like asked to put those references in? And if not, are you reading all these novels and just how are you go about choosing like what you want to reference?
High Republic, again, is 200 years before Living Force, and we deliberately wanted the Living Force to feel like, you know, it's it's a somber look back on that era and all of the big things that we used to be able to do we're not doing anymore. We're stuck in bureaucracy. We've changed what we are. And, you know, I did not go back and read every book, every comic, everything. But, I was able to look up a number of things, and Lucasfilm was able to give me a number of things. We were able to say, okay, here's a signpost we can put in here. Here's some character's name we can put on something in the library that's on the planet Quen. Stuff in there that will be rewarding for those readers who have seen that stuff and connects it. There are franchises where. You can trust me to have, Batman, I have no problem knowing everything that was in both Tim Burton movies because we're just two. But everything else, it does help to have them help.
And that's something I think all of you could probably speak to is how helpful the story group can be in helping drop those extra things in and knowing that the context of those are going to be additive to the stories rather than detract or distract.
Yeah, I mean, the key to Easter eggs is you want the fans to get it and enjoy it, but you don't want everybody else to be thinking, I'm missing something important here. It just kind of goes by, the fans pick it up. The story group has been marvelous. When I did the book Thrawn, the opening, I used a short story I'd done earlier, many years earlier, and put Eli Vanto into it. Story group came back and said, you can't use TIE fighters in this, which I'd used in the story, because they don't exist yet. But about midway through the novel, they start being deployed and you can start using them. Story group is great at answering questions you had no idea even to ask. That was one of them. And that's a perfect example of they know everything and they can help us to pretend we know everything too.
Like in Rise of the Red Blade, we realized that Iskat would have had her Jedi ceremony. Can y'all hear it?
No, that was not wrong.
So Iskat had her Jedi ceremony. She would have become a Jedi at the same time as Anakin. And Mike Chen had just written his book, and so I got to read kind of an early copy and add to that, I got to write a scene where Anakin becomes a Jedi, adding on to the one that Mike had written, which is super fun because Mike Chen is a great writer. But my favorite little ones are when you're doing a comic and you can just sneak in a visual that no one will notice unless they notice it. So I have one where Leia and Holdo as teenagers are learning how to drive in the lower level of Coruscant. And I was like, in the back of one scene, can we just please have Elan Sleaze-Bagano looking clean and tidy and happy, holding the hand of his child? Because when Obi-Wan said, you don't want to sell me death sticks today. You want to go home and rethink your life. He did, and now it's canon that he went home and rethought his life and had a kid and is getting on with it. So you wouldn't notice that unless you knew what you were looking for. And I also got a pink elephant stuck in the back of a comic once. So we have these little things that we're oh please let me just sneak in a Chani Arts into a book and see if anybody that loves KOTOR notices it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, next question, please.
My bad. Hey, so this is more of just a general question, but as Star Wars has kind of transitioned from movies to TV shows, I feel like you can kind of get a more specific focus on certain characters. Has that changed how you write books at all?
So now that Star Wars is able to focus on more characters with TV shows and stuff, does that change how you focus on characters in books? Is that the question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hasn't for me.
Well, there haven't really been a lot of books tying into the TV shows because the TV shows are moving so fast that we can't even get near them.
Fair.
Says the guy who wrote a tie-in to the Rebels TV show.
Well, but again, those
that was a prequel.
Those episodes
Yeah.
had already been animated, but even though the novel came out before the show did.
Yeah.
It's hard. I wrote 4 Star Trek streaming novels, so just a couple for Discovery, one for Strange New Worlds, one for Picard, and part of why I was able to do that is because one of the people that is working on those TV shows is a fellow novelist. And so Kirsten Beyer is literally the go-between between those shows and us, and usually we talk to her on the phone way after midnight when she's no longer on set or whatever, because she actually is able to say, yeah, you're really not going to collide with anything if you write about this character or this thing or this whatever, because if you were, I would know it by now. It's not a kind of a full-blown story group kind of a thing, but it's like having a mole in the organization.
But I guess to that point, like the Acolyte tie-ins are A, many, many years after the show, and B, came out after the show. News was that it wasn't getting renewed.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
well,
you can boo that.
Again, this is the challenge. Is these are moving trains.
Yeah,
and we are kind of the tail, and that's the dog.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
But sometimes you get messages like you'll get your outline okayed, you write your book, your edit likes it, then one day they'll be like, you can't use moths or you can't mention witches, and you're like, why not? And they're like, we can't tell you.
Yeah.
And then the TV show comes out, and you're like, yeah, Filoni stole another thing. But it's like they have all of these moving parts, and all we get is, it's like basically God being like, don't take that road today. I'm not going to tell you why.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next question.
My question is to Timothy Zahn. Your Heir to the Empire trilogy, part of the subplot really gets into sort of hinting at a very different idea of what the Clone Wars ended up being. And obviously, I think you used the metaphor of it being steamrolled later on, whenever the movies came out, and having to be changed and molded by later stories. But I've always been curious, what was the original idea for what the Clone Wars looked like for you?
They told me not to reference any details of the Clone Wars, probably because George hadn't figured them out yet. I've got a couple of little references that the image that has always stuck with me, Bill Slavicsek from West End Games did this. All of us writers in Star Wars are being allowed to play with our toys in George Lucas's driveway. If when he backs his truck out, he runs over something we've done, we have no cause to complain. I had some references, but I think if you squint properly at them, I think they only got winged by the truck a little bit as it went by. And I was very glad that they hadn't let me do anything, because it was completely backwards to what I had envisioned. I think I can probably spackle some of those references by maybe just it's a local somebody's memory of it or something, but we're good at spackling too, fortunately.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hey, question for Timothy Zahn. So given that Thrawn kind of was picked up by Disney's canon and given a life of its own, do you see the same thing happening for Mara Jade in the near future? And given Luke's fate in The Last Jedi, do you think that her backstory and her incorporation in the canon would have to be reworked?
We mentioned earlier the people asking, how do I get my Star Wars book published? The other one top on my list is, can you tell Disney to put Mara Jade in canon? I can say that. It won't go anywhere. It's entirely a Lucasfilm/Disney decision as to whether to bring in Mara or Talon Card or anybody else. Mm-hmm. I think those two characters in particular would work well in the Star Wars universe, but that's entirely up to them. And it may be that they don't want them because there's too much connection in the books that they're not going to do later on, either with Mara or Card becoming a sort of a semi-diplomat, negotiator type person. That's the realm of Mon Mothma and people like that. So they have not told me whether they've got something in the works. If not, if they're not planning to. All I know is when I ask if I can bring her into canon, the answer is someplace between no and heck no. So I would like to see Mara and or Card in live action, but that's not my decision, and I don't know anything, really.
I would say, just as a point of clarification to look for, Disney probably has zero interest or say in it. Lucasfilm just sort of picks the creatives that do it, which is why you saw Corran Horn in Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? It was just they were fans of Corran, and they found a way to put him in. And Filoni was a fan of Thrawn, and he put him in. And the creatives, when they have a good case for bringing those characters in, they get to bring them in where they can, where Story Group thinks it makes sense. And Lucasfilm is able to do that where it serves everything around the story. And then Disney says, oh, that's what you did? Cool. We'll distribute that. And that's about how it works. So it would be the individual creatives that they're bringing in to do that, not necessarily the corporate structure whatsoever. I think they have a free creative hand to do whatever they want.
Where Disney starts taking notice is if and when they start making money from the character. As you know, that's their job, is to make money for the company, keep it going. So the fact that they are making money off of Thrawn with T-shirts, lightsabers, things of that sort, they have taken notice. If Corran pops back up and they start making money off of him, they'll keep going with that.
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if Thrawn making money is probably why they were like, if you wanted to distribute a New Republic movie, we'd be happy with that. And they're like, oh, Dave Filoni's doing a New Republic movie, cool. That sort of thing.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
I have a comment and a question, if that's okay. Okay, my comment, it's fast. But if we want Mara Jade to be in Star Wars, we should have more women writers writing for Star Wars. Just saying. Thank you. And here's my question. Do you guys read other Star Wars novels? And if so, what is your favorite one that you have not written?
I just don't have time to keep up with all of them, so it's simpler not to try to pick and choose and lose continuity completely.
Well, I go back to the Brian Daley stuff, the Han Solo novels way back in the day.
I'm a Matthew Woodring Stover fan, so I love his the most. Like that, they've got a renew. They did a really pretty repackage of Revenge of the Sith. And my life goal is to get one signed because I love his writing.
Thank you.
I'll say as we're waiting for the next question, my favorite Star Wars is whichever one I'm experiencing. And I've read all the books, so I just love them all. And all the movies, and all the shows, and all the stuff.
Hi. Hi. This is another question for Timothy Zahn. I really like the way you depicted Eli and Thrawn, their personalities, and the way you depicted strategy. And you haven't really self-promoted this entire weekend. Are you writing anything currently, whether it's Star Wars or not? And is it going to be the same vein of strategy?
I just finished a 6-book series called the Icarus Saga. It picks up off a book I did 25 years ago. There's a lot of, it's more boots on the ground type thing, not huge military type strategy. But there are a lot of twists and turns, and the protagonist is pretty smart and navigates his way through all this complex political science stuff. I'm also doing more military stuff with David Weber and a prequel to his Honor Harrington stuff. And I've got a few other things in line. I'm always, have the phone right next to me in case Lucasfilm calls and they want another book. We'll see if that ever comes about, but yeah, I've got a few other things going on.
Thank you. I'll look into those other books.
Thank you. While we're on that, John, Delilah, what else do you have? Delilah, I read Guillotine recently. It was terrific. And John, I'm in the middle of your new Batman book.
Yeah, October 21 is when the sequel to Batman Resurrection comes out. That's Batman Revolution, so the second novel tying into the Tim Burton Batman movies. Big day, the 21st, because that's also the day that the Star Wars Old Republic Volume 2 Omnibus comes out, and that gives you the Knight Errant comics that I wrote and the Lost Tribe of the Sith comics that I wrote, all the rest of the Old Republic stuff. And so there'll be 2 gargantuan volumes, of which I have Volume 1 at booth 3201 over in the vendor hall. Those 2 volumes will give you everything I wrote for the Old Republic for Dark Horse.
And I had 4 books out this year. I had a Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft book out, so if you like Dungeons & Dragons and Ravenloft and want to read about Strahd these days, I've got that. I also have these postcards with like my full backlist on them. If you like my Star Wars books, you'll probably like at least some of these because they're mostly about violent women. So yeah, and also like I'm online, I'm at Delilah Dawson anywhere, so like if you want to know like, oh, where should I start with your books, you can ask me online and I'll say what's your favorite book and then I'll point one out for you. But yeah, you can come get a postcard and find some, I mean, one's got a knife on it, like it's all there.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Timothy, one of the questions I've always wondered, and you may have more or less already answered it with someone else, but with the Bounty Hunter trilogy, did you get any information beforehand about what was gonna, like, because I just recently reread it and it doesn't seem to have any continuity errors with the movies?
I didn't do anything with Bounty Hunters.
You didn't?
You're
I don't
thinking
know.
about
I must have
somebody
gotten
else.
really confused. I am so sorry.
That's okay.
Confusion's nothing new.
Hi, I'm Ryan. This is a question for Timothy Zahn. Where did you get the inspiration for Night Swan for your new Thrawn books?
The inspiration for which? Night Swan?
Yeah, Night Swan.
I just wanted somebody that Thrawn is competing against who is not evil. Someone who tactically and strategically is very close to Thrawn's equal. There was a panel years ago, a supervillain smackdown at a convention. It wound up with Thrawn versus Lex Luthor. And the other panelists said who they thought would win, got to me, and I said, they're not going to fight. Thrawn will try to recruit him. He's a good asset. If we can find common ground, better I can use him rather than just destroy him. So that is basically where the same dynamic between Thrawn and Night Swan.
Thank you.
Mr. Zahn, did you have any instruments that were associated to your characters in the Thrawn trilogy?
Any instruments?
Yes, sir.
Musical instruments?
Yes, sir.
Not particularly. I think the theme is organ music that they came up with. Yeah, probably organ sounds more like Thrawn than, say, trumpet or flute or anything. Yeah, let's go with organ.
Thank you.
Did for any of you, as you're writing Star Wars, did you write to any Star Wars music?
I
Or any
wear
music
these
at all?
airport tarmac quality headphones, so I'm not hearing anything from anybody because I need to be on my own space, which is always entertaining when the FedEx guy shows up. See if we wander up with that.
I mean, I can't believe you didn't bring up good old-fashioned bits jizz.
No.
Everyone's favorite Star Wars music.
Are we going there again this year?
It's canon! There's jizz and jats. Like, Figure and Dan is the master of them all.
I thought we left this behind at last year's panel.
I will never leave this behind. I'll die on this hill. And I had playlists for Phasma and Blackspire, I believe. So if you're on Spotify, I'm Delilah S. Dawson. But you can see I've got playlists for tons of books.
Brought us back. What?
10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I had various classical music pieces that I would listen to when I write. Nowadays, I mostly just do silence, and maybe if the cat's purring, go right to that.
Cat's purring is great. So we do have about 10 minutes left, so these will be our last 4 questions. So thank you, everybody who's asked questions so far, and thank you four, for being patiently in line. So go ahead.
Hey, I've got a question more or less about like writing than the Star Wars specifically. What's your favorite part about writing a novel? Like the setting, the characters, the dialogue? What's your favorite part about it?
Being here.
What's?
No, I mean honestly, I love talking about having written, or I love. Well, that's not my line. I hate writing. I love having written. Seeing it done is and then going back and knowing that you actually put all that together. Dialogue, yeah. I despise outlining, which means I'm really in the wrong job because everything we do involves outlining. Because they need to know everything's going to happen. So I certainly prefer dialogue. But no, I do it all to be able to talk about it at some point.
Yeah, the last quarter or third, when all the plot threads and character arcs have started and they're all now coming together, I've had enough cogitating time to think of all the little details that I'll figure that out when I get to the end. I figured it out now, and now it's coming together. I will say the fun part of writing is the coming up with the idea. Translating from here onto the page is the work.
I just love the kind of passionate fury of a first draft. It's like you're holding the whole story in your head and you can see it unfolding, almost like going on a road trip, and just kind of like you can see the road in front of you and know that you're going on an adventure. And there's this sort of, it's like God daydreaming. Like you are the person who is captaining the ship, who makes everything, who puts in all the details. But I just love the promise of it. Like after all these years, writing for me has never felt like drudgery. It's always this really cool oasis where I get to go and feel like my best self and use my brain for what it was meant to do. And also hanging out with you guys. Like Star Wars Celebration is, I think, one of the best things you can do with your time. Like that is the most lovely group of people. And Dragon Con too. But if you haven't been to Celebration and you can swing it.
Good save. Yeah.
Well, they're already here. They know this is great.
Thank you. It was an honor to talk to you guys.
Thank you. Next question.
This question is for all three of you. Something that I generally really love about the Star Wars universe is the nice, peaceful, and just very sweet moments that come up in these books. What would you say was the best, sweetest moment that you wrote in your novels?
In Galaxy's Edge Black Spire, which if you haven't read it, it kind of explains Galaxy's Edge at the Disney parks. So if you're ever like, what made that? Why did someone shoot the wall there? What is in that tank? Why is this drink named that? Who is this shopkeeper? It will kind of sound like a Zagat's guide to the area with a story as well. But Vi Marati, the spy that you can meet in Galaxy's Edge, has to put together like a little team. So she has to recruit locally. And the moments where they're just hanging out and it's her and she has a little... she helps a Chadra fan named Creaky, who's just like a sweet little cinnamon roll baby, and she saves her from an abusive employer, and then she has a little farm boy who brings his puffer pig, and she just has this little found family before everything goes horribly, horribly awry. But just that moment of Star Wars where a nice person recruits other nice people and together they make a found family, it was really nice before I blew that up.
I would probably say there are a lot that come to mind, but I will just state the one in Vision of the Future where Luke and Mara are trying to break into a place, and they're in a tunnel. A whole bunch of basically army ants are now coming through. We can't kill them because that'll alert everybody else. Luke cuts a couple of ledges in this archway. They jump up and balance on each other. They're using hand to hand so they can stay on these ledges while the ants go by. And Mara proceeds to tell Luke these are the things you have done wrong in the last 10 years. And it's a very intimate moment because we're standing hands clasped to keep ourselves from dying. And it's a kind of a pivotal moment, I think, in their relationship. And it was just a lot of fun to write.
The very first chapter I wrote for the Kenobi novel was the one where Analine comes to visit Obi-Wan at his home to deliver the groceries that he forgot because he left in a hurry because he was afraid of being, recognized as a Jedi. And there's this wonderful exchange where basically she explains to him all the ways he's going to die living in the desert if he doesn't actually learn something. I mean, there's a bantha that's trying to attack his house. There's all these things that are going on, and that also partly sold the book because I'm like, okay, this is going to be the whole thing. It's going to be him hanging out in this place and getting to know these people, and You know, it's a very slow-paced novel because we're actually living in the middle of it. We're immersed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Penultimate question.
Hi, thank you all for, oh my gosh, so loud. Thank you all for being here today. Appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedules to be here with us. So, question for you, as you are working with such complex characters that have very in-depth feelings and conflicting thoughts and whatnot on the actions that are partaking in a land that for us doesn't exist in real life, it's so far, far away. How do you dive backwards into that character and bring their thoughts and emotions and feelings into life in a way that's portrayed not only in saying what they think, but making the actions follow it and have the actions display what they're thinking?
I mean, kind of any novel in your own world or another IP, you are, trying to put yourself into the mind of the character in their specific world with their specific challenges, and you have to know them inside and out, their strengths, their weaknesses, what matters to them, the backstory that made them who they are. So the challenge is just thinking through their head while also remembering that people don't always say everything that they're thinking, and they are often unreliable narrators, or they may not say what they mean to the person that they care about because they're scared. So you just can't be super direct. You have to know that we often as human beings hide, we're shy, we're vulnerable, we'll act very brash, but people in Star Wars are just like people anywhere else. They're all just trying to survive, except, with a wampa.
Yeah, basically, you once you're in the character's skin in whatever point of view scene you're in, you are that person. You've got access to the memories and the personality and all of that as well. So it's something you learn by doing it as a writer.
And it really helps a lot if these are characters you've seen on screen, because if you're a mimic, which I think I can be, you can pretty much say to yourself, okay, that sounds like something they would say. That sounds like something they would do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last question.
This is for any of you guys. When you're writing a battle or a fight, how do you balance the feeling of it, the emotions of the characters, but still make it immersive and good to read? You know what I mean?
Yeah, combat scenes are very tricky, especially if you're talking about spaceships or armies or whatever. Helping people understand the battleground, helping people understand what's where. And the trick is when you're hopping around from point of view to point of view to show what people are experiencing, what they're thinking at the time, what's happening. We get that in Star Wars. We get that. I think the amazing one in film is The Hunt for Red October, where you have a submarine fight between 3 submarines that you always know what's going on, even though it's dark, even though it's difficult to see what's happening, because the lighting and everything is different. We understand the world in each submarine differently. We meet all the characters and we see all the characters. They flash between them all. And I guess that's the trick, is just making sure that you have put in the reader's, the mind's eye, give them everything they need to understand what's happening.
Yeah, whether it's a space battle or just combat on the city street, you need to be able to visualize what's happening and then translate that into words so that the reader can understand. You don't get the luxury of, say, a 2-second clip in a Jason Bourne movie where you really don't know what's going on except he's winning. Ideally, you need the reader to be able to visualize what you're visualizing for the fight.
I do it in waves. So the first wave, it'll be kind of like the blocking. A fight scene is a lot like a sex scene for this. The first, it's what goes where, how many ships, where the people are, what's actually happening, so you can plot the course of it to, the climax and the ending of the fight. And then you can come in later and focus on the emotions of the different people, because you're also trying to, the battle is having this curve, and the people's character arcs / emotions are also having that curve. So it's very hard for me to get all of that into the first draft well, where I have to see what happens, and then once I've established that, I can more carefully focus on what's happening for the people involved at each point.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we are out of time. So I want to thank all of our authors here for being here at the Authors from a Galaxy Far, Far Away panel.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming.
And thank you all, for sure. Thank you all for being here at DragonCon.
I'm here Sunday and Monday, Side Street Books, 3201 in the dealer room.
I've got 2 more signings, I think. One tomorrow at, what time is that? 2:30. 2:30 in the Overlook at the Westin, and then Monday at 11, a signing at the Missing Volume, booth 1300 over in the America's Mart.
I've got a bunch of panels still coming up. I'm Delilah S. Dawson on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads, and you can find the full panel there or in the app. And they do have my books, The Missing Volume, and if you just see me running around somewhere, like I can sign it for you. It's hard here because the bookstore is so far away, but like if you catch us before or after a panel, like we're here for you. At least for 5 minutes till we have to run to the next one.
Thank you, everybody. These are always such fun things to do. It's one of the reasons Dragon Con is one of my favorite shows, just getting to do this every year. And, you know, one day maybe I'll get to join as a panelist as well as a moderator. Fingers crossed. Who knows? But as far as I go, you can catch me at Swankmatron across social media and at swankmatron.com. And as far as Full of Sith goes, Holly and I are going to be doing a live show at Salt Lake Comic Con's Fan X, and you can do that. We'll be there September 25th and through 27th. I think those are the dates. You can go to fullofsith.com and listen to the entire back catalog of episodes, which we have more than 700 recordings now, and 600 regular. More than 600 regular releases and 100 special releases on top of that. So be sure to go listen to all of the great content we have there. Be sure to rate and review the show wherever it is you listen to it, and send us emails at holocron@fullofsith.com. We're always looking out for those. So, for super producer Mike Pilot, for Holly Fry, and for the panel of authors that joined me at DragonCon, I'm Bryan Young, and the Force will be with you always.
Sir, if you'll not be meeting me, I'll close down for a while.